Hi everyone, welcome to the Time Form and Sporting Live Saturday racing preview. It's a King George special. It looks a tremendous renewal of the Ascot Saturday feature. I'm Ben Linfoot, joined by Kieran Clark from Time Form and Matt Brocklebank from Sporting Life to go through the race, and we'll have a quick look at the International Handicap and the Sky Bet York Stakes at the end of the show as well. Matt, it is a fantastic renewal of the King George. We've got two brilliant 3-year-olds, we think, taking on some fantastic older horses, and it really is all set up to be a special race.
It really is, yeah. It's so great to be talking about the King George in these sort of terms. We've had, certainly we were just speaking there, in sort of our lifetimes, we've had some brilliant individuals win this race, haven't we? The likes of Harbinger and Tagruder, and obviously Enable, the only 3-time winner of the King George in recent seasons. They really stand out for me personally, but in terms of depth, real sort of breadth and depth to the quality of the race in a King George, you're going back a good 20 years. It was on the podcast this week, Billy Nash flagged up that the John Ox winner, there were 10 Group 1 winners in that field, and you know we're looking at 7 Group 1 or Grade 1 winners in this weekend's race. Absolutely fantastic race, great to be looking forward to it.
Yeah, it looks a deep race, Kieran, and it's a sort of race where you do look at the Time Form ratings and think, oh, I wonder what is top rated here, because it can't have been an easy task really for the Time Form handicapper when you've got 5 or 6 horses that look so closely matched on form.
That's it. We're blessed with a very good crop of middle distance performers this year, and you see those ratings on the screen now. So they are the weight adjusted ratings. Obviously Emily Upjohn gets the sex allowance, the likes of August Rodin and King of Steel get the weight for age, so that's all factored in. So you see there Emily Upjohn does come out on top very narrowly ahead of Hookham. And then you've got the likes of Luxembourg, whose rating comes from his Tats Gold Cup win. And then you've got the pair of 3-year-olds and last year's winner, Pile Driver. If they all run to form, this is going to be some finish, isn't it? Yeah,
and the key there is the P's attached to August Rodin and King of Steel, indicating the possibility of more to come. And that's what makes this race so great, because we're seeing the 3-year-olds against the older horses, and, you know.
They've acquitted themselves well so far, haven't they? The likes of Paddington and Shaquille. So yeah, hopefully these lot can continue the trend.
Well, let's have a look at some video form to help us out. We've got Emily Upjohn running at Sandown last time out in the Coral Eclipse. This was over 10 furlongs, and she was beaten by a 3-year-old this day in Paddington. I think stepping up back to 1.5 miles is certainly going to suit her.
Yeah, I do. I really fancied her in Eclipse, to be honest. She's just bumped into a very, very good horse, hasn't she? She's come there with every chance. She tracked her IMO the whole way, and I do think it's a good thing Frankie's back on. That's nothing against. Was it Will Buick that rode the last time? Yeah, but she is a filly that takes a bit of knowing, isn't she? And the fact that Frankie's back on board, she went off. You know, she's really well fancied for this last year, wasn't she? And she pulled too hard, but she's much more settled this year. But here, I thought she was coming to win here, and then she's just come up against a very brave and game Paddington. But they've pulled well clear of the remaining pair. If she runs to this form, she'll have every chance again. She'll like a bit of ease in the ground. She was a nice winner here on Champions Day, wasn't she, with a bit of dig. There's plenty to like about her. I'm going to take her on though. Maybe it's not a wise move, but I am.
Hold your horses, Kieran. We will get there. We will get to the selections. We're going to stick with Sandown, Matt, and look at a key piece of video form from earlier in the season. Unfortunately, Desert Crown hasn't made the King George, but the horse who beat him that day in the Brigadier Gerard, Hookham, has, and he won probably despite the 10 furlong trip, you would say, earlier in the season. And again, you know, he's got lots in his favour, stepping back up to 1.5 miles at Ascot.
Yeah, with Hookham, the first thing you have to say is that it's absolutely brilliant for the Shadwell Estate team to keep a 6-year-old Entire in training, and it's already paid off straight away. Back from a break, Owen Burrows horses are often really cherry ripe after a break. In fact, Hookham's record after 50 days or more away is first, fourth, first. So he's absolutely lethal after a layoff, and he's got another 50-odd day break here. So I think missing Ascot might be a blessing in disguise. There he was beating Desert Crown, the Derby winner.
He did well to pick him up this day, didn't he?
He did. He is a bona fide middle distance, 1.5 mile horse. I mean, he's won a couple of Geoffrey Frears over 1 mile 5 and a bit, hasn't he, as well? So he's a proven Ascot horse. He's going to relish going back up in distance. He travels strongly as well. At this day, you could almost argue that as a 6-year-old, he's just really sort of finished his maturity, and he's almost quicker than ever, but he's definitely going to stay, handle the move back up to a mile and a half. I think Hookham's got everything in his favour, including the ground at the weekend, which we expect to still be on the easy side of good. Yeah,
the rain could be key. A massive player, Hookham in the King George. Those are the two highest rated older horses on Timeform ratings, but they do have a couple of 3-year-olds to take on, August Rodan and King of Steel, who were 1-2 in the Derby, Kieran. This is the key 3-year-old form coming into the King George. We can watch it again. It was a great race. King of Steel kicking clear, we thought, under Kevin Stott, but August Rodan doing really well to reel him in on Epsom Downs. And do you think it'll be the same again, August Rodan finishing in front of him?
I think he's going to overturn the form scoop. I think there's a few reasons why.
Talk us through it watching this.
So King of Steel, I love the way he's just cut through the pack. He travelled really well in midfield. Kevin Stott's obviously committed him. He committed him at the right time. He did nothing wrong. August Rodan's obviously come on the back of a disappointing effort in the Guineas, and he does run him down late on. But King of Steel's a massive horse. I know he didn't run in the Dantiques, he played up in the stalls, but he's an absolute unit, isn't he? And you think this is his first run of the season. I know Roger Varian does get them fit at home, but looking at his size, you think he's going to come on for that. And it was a bit of a penalty kick he won at Royal Ascot, but he was impressive there again last time. And was he at his best in the Irish Derby, August Rodan? You know, he beat Adelaide River, who ran okay in the Grand Prix de Paris, but I don't know, he just didn't look the same horse. And the ground would be a big concern for me for August Rodan. I think he's a really fluent mover, good actioned horse. I think he's a better horse on better ground. So I think that's why King of Steel will overturn the form. The one thing I will say is the draw. Ryan Moore's drawn wide. That's normally a good thing at this track. You think he's just going to keep wide and out of that early skirmishing, whereas King of Steel's drawn 3. Now, Kevin Stott's got a decision to make. Is he going to take him into the pack, or is he going to take him back like he did last time? And he could potentially find himself further back than ideal if that's the case, but he's such a good mover. That
you've led us on well onto draw and tactics. Let's have a look at the pace map, because it really could be key, and we think there's going to be a hell of a pace on here with the likes of Bolshoi Ballet and Luxembourg in there, who could really try and tee it up for August Rodan, Matt.
Yeah, I think that's the absolute key to it, isn't it? We're looking back on that derby, Kevin Stott might well have 1 or 2 regrets from Epsom, but you do sense that Aidan O'Brien and everyone at Ballydoyle will have watched that derby 100 times over themselves as well, and they'll know. I think they suspect they've got the stronger stayer of the pair of the 3-year-olds there. And you do listen to Roger Varian, he's sort of already talking about potentially dropping to 10 furlongs for King of Steel. I don't think they've got a slow horse. He's certainly not going to be geared around the St. Leger. So an end-to-end gallop, I think the idea that August Rodan's going to be suited by that is correct. That leads me to just prefer him of the two, because I do think this is going to be a searching gallop. Luxembourg's an interesting one, isn't he? I put him up a couple of weeks ago for this race.
You did, and you thought it might turn out to be a 4-5 runner race. It hasn't turned out like that, but with the revised odds and the final field, do you still fancy Luxembourg?
No, I can't recommend him as a bet. I know he's a little bit bigger, even at 14, 16 to 1 maybe, but it was largely down to the fact that I thought it would cut up a lot. I think as a pair, Emily Upjohn and Hookham are so strong, really, really strong. I actually prefer those over the 3-year-olds. And as a pair, I still can't quite take them on and recommend Luxembourg. I hope he runs well. I think he could run a big race. He's got unfinished business over the 1.5 mile distance. He picked up an injury in the arc on his only previous try, but soft ground's not a problem for him. I could see him going well. Would I be shocked if he won? No, but I can't recommend going in again. Before we get to the selections, there's just one more horse I think we should mention. That's last year's winner, Kieran, Pile Driver.
Definitely.
Fire away.
Well, he's the most underrated horse in training, isn't he? He just keeps winning. He came back off that absence.
He loves Ascot.
Yeah, he does. He won the Hardwick, didn't he, on his return? And
do you think it's just too hot for him?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't really give him...
He's there on the ratings. He's got, he's up there in the 130s with the big...
He is, but you look at the renewal he won last year, and Westover pulled too hard. Emily Upjohn did the same. He beat the Arc winner from Germany, Torquato Tasso, and Mishra for third. So it was a good renewal. I just think when you're coming up the likes of Emily Upjohn, Hookham, and these 3-year-olds, they are top class horses, and he might just fall a little bit short for all that he's an absolute star in himself, Pile Driver. And Hookham absolutely smashed him in the Coronation Cup last year.
That's the key, isn't it?
4.25 lengths.
And that's one of the reasons why I fancy Hookham. What are your selections, gents?
Yeah, Hookham and Emily Upjohn would be the two. I think probably Owen Burrows' horse of the pair, but I'm going to pass in terms of recommending a bet, I'm afraid.
And Kieran, King of Steel for you?
Yeah, I was all over Hookham last week when he was 7s. Now he's 9-2. I've gone a bit cold on him.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll keep the faith with the 3-year-old. Hopefully get some redemption for the Derby.
I still think it could be a good price, that 9-2 Hookham. We shall see a fantastic renewal of the King George. Also at Ascot, it's the Moët and Chandon International Stakes over 7 furlongs. A brilliant handicap, a huge field to go through, and straight away we'll go to the time form ratings just to try and help us figure this one out. And one horse towards the top of the ratings, Kieran, is Vafortino, and he's got a couple of flags next to his name as well, because he's a horse in focus and he's a horse for the course, if you like, because he's got some really good Ascot form.
He does, yeah. He won the Victoria Cup last season, didn't he? And he very rarely runs a bad race at Ascot. He didn't get things going his way when he was 10th in the Buckingham Palace, but he ran an absolute cracker when he ran at York a couple of weeks ago. He was only just touched off by Northern Express, and I like the fact they've put a good value £5 claimer on in Kaya Fraser. He's made a really good impression the last couple of years, and he's got plenty going for him. It'd be a pretty poignant and emotional success if he does win for the yard, but yeah, he'll run his race. I just worry from that mark of 102, are there a couple lurking in there that are potentially better handicap for all that he does have a claimer on board?
Well, one who might be better handicap, Matt, is Biggles, because we've got some very recent form of him winning the Bunbury Cup at the July Festival. I think we've got the video of it, and he ran on well that day under Ryan Moore to run out a convincing winner, and he looks fairly well treated on the back of it.
He does, and it's a slight surprise because Biggles, when we were speaking at the start of the season, he looked a fairly exposed 6-year-old. He was beaten 3 times from a mark of 100, and then he comes to the Bunbury Cup and absolutely bolts it.
He hits the rising ground here and just lengthens clear, doesn't he?
He does, yeah, and Rafe Beckett kind of said straight away afterwards, like, look, he's always looked capable of a performance like this. It was just a question of placing him in the right races. Now, whether he can do it under a penalty here, he is £2 well in. Ryan Moore clearly got the best out of him. He keeps the ride. Stall 6 might be, I mean, it's guesswork, isn't it? He might be a bit troublesome if they kind of come more towards the stand side. You'd think a big field like that, softish ground, they're going to split into 2 groups, and it's which side?
3, really.
It could potentially be. It's which side holds sway, but there's a little bit of pace on the stand side. I'm starting to think maybe that might be the place to be. So 6, I would maybe be against him. It's just something that he's a 7-8 to 1 shot rather than
yeah, well, it's a great betting race. Let's get to selections. Have you got one for us?
Well, I like Ramazan, but I also like the other 3-year-old, an absolutely wild price, Zoo Run. Now, in the last 10 years, I was looking, only 19 runners have been 3-year-olds from 270, 300 runners overall. And they've had 3 seconds, a 4th, and a couple of 5ths as well from those 19 runners. So in terms of the overall representation of 3-year-olds, I think they've performed fairly well. So people will lazily look down and say, I was telling you about no 3-year-old could win the Bunbury Cup, but a lot of them were getting well beat, whereas a lot of 3-year-olds run...
A lot of them won't get in.
No, exactly. They just don't get in the race. But it is, a couple more weeks further down the line of the development, and it is that time of year for 3-year-olds. I thought Zoo Run, he has a huge amount of improvement to make, but I think he'll like the ground. He's an interesting one because he's out of the handicap in race like this.
66 to 1, isn't he?
That's the crucial factor. But also, Andrew Baldwin's record with these handicappers out of the weights, he just doesn't run them when he thinks that they've absolutely no chance. He clearly thinks this horse can improve by the end of the year a huge amount, so he lets them take their chance in these big handicaps. We've seen it so many years over the years with Jimmy Quinn riding those handicaps that you've enjoyed over the years. With, Jimmy Quinn
at
a
few times at Epsom.
So I think if there is, it's my job to look out for the absolute who'da thunk it, people scratching their heads after the race thinking, who's this, how was that one? I think you have to sort of flip it on its head sometimes and start from those outsiders and see if there is a case to be made for him. And I think Zoo Run, As I said, not a huge amount of pace in this race. For a huge field handicap at over 7 furlongs at Ascot, Zura might just be able to get loose on the front end under a low weight, and he could run a huge race. I'm quite keen to back him each way, actually, given that 3-year-old record.
It's nice to have a wild 66-1 shot on the video. Have you got anything for us, Kieran, in the same race?
I'm going to take the second favourite.
The yin and the yang.
I've worn the wrong colour shirt, really. I should be in purple because it's another Ammo racing horse. He's drawn two away from you as well, Matt, so he might give me a nice 2 in, but it's Paradise. He's a really obvious one. He's a time form top rated as well, but he beat Biggles on his final start last season, and then he was 3rd in the Lincoln over a mile, and I think a mile just stretches him slightly. He then didn't have things go his own way in the Victoria Cup. He slightly slowly away, and then he was switched to the other side of the track, and it paid to actually be in the group he would have been in. And he didn't get a clearest of runs that day, and then the ground was too quick at Royal Ascot.
He ended up in the dreaded middle, didn't he?
He did, yeah, no man's land. Yeah, he's got first-time cheek pieces, which George Bowie has a good record in. Everything looks right for a big run. I think this is his Gold Cup, his King George, should I say? And I'll be disappointed if he's not bang on the scene. Baradar, 7-1.
I like it. One from the top of the market and one from the bottom. In the International, it's that kind of race. We're going to finally look at some good racing up at York as well, because it's the Group 2 Sky Bet York Stakes, and some fascinating horses in here, including My Prospero. I presume he's the time form top rated. He's been dropping down from Group 1 company, and it's a big day for him. Yeah,
this was a contest which I was starting to sort of question the validity of it being a Group 2, but you see this year's, and it's a cracking renewal, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
You got like some
not much between the top two there.
No, he's dropping down from Group 1 company, like you say. He ran in a Lockinge and Royal Ascot as well. And then you've got Al Flaler, who really took off at the end of last season, didn't he? He went through the ranks, winning a couple of Group 3 events. Hasn't been seen since for the Owen Burrows Yard, coming back off a break. You got a Royal Ascot winner there in Royal Champion, and then the other couple have a bit to find. But Macheux's coming through the ranks as well, so it's trappy, but it's a good renewal, isn't it?
Have we got any selections in the race?
I think Alflailer's a fair price, to be honest. Yeah, he's 4-5-1 for Owen Burrows. Could be a good day for Burrows. He's got a fantastic strike rate, this horse, and he's got a win at York as well. So moves up to 12 furlongs. Everything suggests he's going to improve again for that sort of trip. He's actually 40-1 for the Juddmonte International. Might not be the worst play if you're looking to back him at 4-1.
I just have a slight concern that he misses the break, and this could turn tactical. There's only 5 runners.
But the extra furlong will help in that respect as
True.
well. And if Johnny Merters goes forward,
you just might have to quicken into an already quickening pace, which is not ideal.
Tough,
but I did like Royal Champion, but I think the ground's gone against him. I think Macheur will get an easy lead. I don't know, Scoop is the answer. My Prospero's the most likely winner, but I can't tip him at 5-4.
Well, I like Al Flaler. I think Owen Burrows is a master at bringing these horses off a long break, and it could be a good day for the Burrows Yard, as Matt says, with Hookham going in the King George. Enjoy King George Saturday. It looks set for a fantastic renewal. Good luck with your own weekend wagers, and we'll be back again next week.